In 2019, the United States cut Huawei off from parts of the technology stack that power modern smartphones. No normal Google services on new global phones. No easy access to advanced chips. No normal supply chain relationship with the companies that made Huawei fast. For most phone brands, that would have been a death sentence. And for a while, Huawei looked finished. Then the Mate 60 Pro appeared in China with a Kirin chip inside, and the question changed. Did the sanctions stop Huawei, or did they force Huawei to rebuild itself into something harder to stop? Huawei was founded in Shenzhen in 1987 by Ren Zhengfei, with about 21,000 yuan in starting capital. It did not begin as a glamorous phone company. It began in telecom equipment, first reselling switching systems and then building its own. The early playbook was simple: serve markets the global giants overlooked, learn fast, and reinvest aggressively. That base mattered, because when Huawei later entered smartphones, it was not just another handset brand. It was a telecom engineering company entering the phone war. By the mid-2010s, Huawei had become one of Android's most dangerous challengers. Honor attacked budget and online buyers. The P series and Mate series attacked the premium market. Leica branding helped Huawei turn camera quality into a global identity. And inside many of its best phones was high silicon, Huawei's own chip design arm, with Kirin processors. This combination made Huawei different. It could compete on price, cameras, networks, and silicon at the same time. The climb became impossible to ignore in 2018. Canalys said Huawei overtook Apple to become the world's number 2 smartphone vendor in the second quarter, shipping 54 million handsets. A year later, Huawei reported 240 million smartphone shipments for 2019. It was close enough to number 1 that the entire industry felt the pressure. Samsung had scale. Apple had ecosystem power. Huawei looked like the only company with a real shot at challenging both. Then came the first major strike. In May 2019, the U.S. Department of Commerce added Huawei to the entity list, saying American technology transfers would need licenses because of national security and foreign policy concerns. Huawei denied that it was a security threat, but the business impact was immediate. Google stopped providing the full Google Android services package for new Huawei devices. In China, that was survivable. Outside China, it was brutal. A premium Android phone without Google Play, Gmail, Maps, YouTube, and normal app access is not a normal Android phone for most global buyers. Huawei still had beautiful hardware. It still had powerful cameras. But outside China, the trust loop was broken. Buyers wondered whether their banking app would work. Retailers wondered whether demand would hold. Developers had to think twice. The sanction did not just remove software. It attacked confidence. The second strike went deeper. In 2020, the US expanded foreign direct product rules around items made with certain American technology and software. In simple terms, even chips made outside the United States could be restricted if the process depended on US origin tools and the chips were for Huawei or high silicon. That hit the choke point of modern electronics. Huawei could design excellent Kirin chips, but advanced manufacturing depended on foundries and equipment it could no longer freely reach. For a short moment, Huawei still looked strong. In 2020, it briefly reached the top of global smartphone shipments, helped by China's market while the pandemic hit competitors. But the direction was clear. Overseas demand was falling. The Google problem was real. The chip problem was becoming a war. In November 2020, Huawei sold Honor so the budget brand could survive with a different supply chain. By Q1 2021, Counterpoint reported Huawei's smartphone sales share had fallen to just 4.6%. Huawei's answer was not one rescue phone. It was a rebuild of the whole stack. It pushed Huawei mobile services and AppGallery. It expanded HarmonyOS across phones, tablets, watches, smart screens, cars, and PCs. It leaned harder into China, where losing Google was less fatal. And it kept spending heavily on research and development. Sanctions did not simply remove Huawei from the old market. They forced Huawei to ask a harder question: how much of the smartphone and computing stack can we control ourselves? The answer became visible in 2023. Huawei released the Mate 60 Pro, and Tech Insights later reported that the Kirin 9000S inside was made by SMIC on a 7nm class N+2 process. This did not mean Huawei had caught Apple, Qualcomm, or TSMC at the leading edge. But symbolically, it was enormous. A sanctioned company had put a domestically produced flagship chip back into a real consumer phone. For Chinese buyers, the Mate 60 was more than a device. It was proof that Huawei was still in the fight. After that, Huawei's comeback became visible in premium phones again. The Pura line pushed camera design. The Mate line pushed Huawei's own ecosystem further. The company was still limited outside China, but inside China it had a powerful combination: brand loyalty, a patriotic comeback story, improving hardware, and a software ecosystem no longer built around Google. Huawei was not returning to the old Android race. It was creating a China-centered race where it controlled more of the pieces. By 2025, the comeback was measurable. Omdia, using Canalys research, said Huawei reclaimed the top position in mainland China's smartphone market in Q2 2025, shipping 12.2 million units and taking 18% share. That does not mean Huawei won the world back. It means it rebuilt a fortress in the world's most important smartphone battlefield. The company that had fallen from global challenger to survival mode had become China's premium comeback story. The bigger point is that Huawei's recovery is no longer only about phones. In its 2025 annual report, Huawei reported 880.9 billion yuan in revenue, with consumer revenue at 344.5 billion yuan. It spent 192.3 billion yuan on research and development, 21.8% of total revenue. Huawei also said it had more than 1 billion HarmonyOS ecosystem devices, more than 10 million HarmonyOS developers, and large deployments around Cloud Matrix, Kunpeng and Ascend. Phones are the face of the comeback, but AI, cloud, cars, telecom, and operating systems are the body behind it. So did the sanctions fail? The honest answer is complicated. They badly damaged Huawei's global phone business. They kept Huawei out of the normal Google Android world. They slowed access to the most advanced chips. But they also accelerated a Chinese push for self-reliance in chips, operating systems, cloud, and AI infrastructure. Huawei is not back as the same company that chased Samsung globally in 2019. It is back as something more domestic, more vertical, and more strategic. That is why the Huawei story matters. This is not just about one phone brand surviving a fight. It is about what happens when a technology giant is cut off from the global system and decides to build around the blockade. Huawei lost the market. Then it rebuilt the stack. And in the chip war, that may be the more important comeback, not becoming the old Huawei again, but becoming a company built for a different technology world.